Welcome to NEXTGames Elder Scrolls Online Veteran Dungeon Solo series. This one taking on Wayrest Seweres I using Dragonknight. Now in this video, we're simply going to have the Wayrest Seweres I battle examples of each of the 6 bosses on the veteran difficulty with commentary. Here we are at Slimecraw, the first boss of this dungeon, and frankly the easiest. All you really need to watch out for is the tail swipe move that he will occasionally do. I find that the usual gear set that I use for damage dealing in normal dungeons is just fine for this boss, and I don't require any special gear setup. That same cannot be said for the remaining 5 bosses of this dungeon, so I'll go over what gear sets I recommend for those once we get to them. But for this one, almost any gear set should do as long as you have the capability of healing yourself through these relatively low damage attacks. I'll go ahead and put the 4 gear sets that you can get from this dungeon up on the screen now. You will get purple gear on this veteran difficulty from all of the bosses that you defeat from this gear set. The final boss of the dungeon will drop a Slimecraw headpiece, and then you can pair that with a shoulder piece that you can get by turning in your keys for your undaunted challenges. We'll talk again at the beginning of boss number 2. Welcome to the second boss, Investigator Garen. Now we're using a Medusa set with 5 pieces here, a Slimecraw set with 2 pieces, Mad Tinkerer set with 4 pieces, and the final piece we're using is a Ring of the Pale Order. Now this is the set we're going to be using for the next 4 bosses. I'll only change it for the final boss of the dungeon. Now in regards to how to take on Investigator Garen here, you basically want to just follow him as he teleports around this particular area. But you need to watch out for that red circle that you see that's chasing me right now. It will be chasing you for much of this fight. You need to avoid it until it disappears after about 10 seconds, like you just saw it do. Now is your time to get in as much damage as possible in that close range if you can. Drop your ultimate if you can and try and get all that damage in, because as you'll see, just a second here later, that circle appears again, and we have to continue to avoid it, which will significantly reduce the amount of damage we can deal. If you have any AoEs you can put down while you're running around him so that you can continue to deal damage while you're running from the red spot in the ground, that would be helpful. Now you want to continue to deal damage until you get to about 75% hit points. Now at this point, he is going to summon 3 ghost helpers that you want to take out immediately, as all of them ganging up on you can do a substantial amount of damage. Now while you're taking on those 3 ghosts, you have to remember to keep an eye on that red circle on the ground, as it will continue to inflict large amounts of damage while you're trying to take out those ghosts. A good technique is to try and get to one and get in as much damage as you can, and if the red circle is caught up to you, go ahead and run to another one to start dealing damage to it, hoping to get it defeated before the red circle catches up to you again. After defeating all 3 ghosts, go ahead and get back to dealing your primary damage to the boss, keeping in mind that red circle at all times. He will again repeat this process of summoning those 3 ghosts at 50% hit points and 25% hit points, so be ready for that. Other than that, this fight is fairly straightforward. Enjoy the rest of the run. We'll talk again at the beginning of Boss 3.
these interlopers.
We shouldn't underestimate this one.
Here we are at the third boss of the dungeon, the Rat Whisperer. Now the main mechanic of this fight is the throng of skeevers that he will summon periodically throughout the run. You're going to need to contend with these skeevers and defeat them while still doing large amounts of damage to him so that the fight can end as quickly as possible. Your ultimate ability will usually be the greatest way to take these skeevers out, but you also need to combine that with AoE abilities that can supplement the damage. Also note that the Rat Whisperer can periodically do a large AoE blast that can do significant damage, so make sure to be ready for that and heal yourself quickly once it goes off. Other than that, this fight is fairly straightforward as long as you can keep that AoE damage going. A Ring of the Pale Order is extremely useful here, as it will actually return all of those hit points that you were draining to all those skeevers, making it much easier to stay alive. That should be it for this one. We'll talk again during the fourth boss. Here we are at the fourth boss of the dungeon, Igar the Hungry. Now there are two main abilities you need to watch out for when going up against Igar. The first is an AoE fear ability that will stun you in place for 2 to 3 seconds. This is most dangerously followed up by his other ability that is of risk to you, which is his heavy attack, that if it lands, can easily one-shot you. Therefore, it's usually best to be continually blocking during this fight, and then continually walking backwards, so that you can dodge both of these critical attacks. If you want, you can get in and get in close like you see me doing right here, but doing so always puts you at risk, and you need to be able to back out of that red circle space that you just saw there to make sure that you aren't taken by one of those heavy attacks. Other than that, this fight is fairly straightforward. We'll talk again at the beginning of the 5th boss. Here we are at the 5th boss of the dungeon, Varine Penar. Now Varine has two main mechanics that you need to watch out for. The first is a heavy melee attack. You want to make sure you block this. The other one is he will sometimes periodically cast a quickly expanding AoE ability that you just saw there. You want to make sure that you stay outside that red circle when it's being cast. He also has a conal attack that he will usually use on you, but it's not of much risk during this fight, especially when wearing this particular gear set, so you can oftentimes just ignore that ability. That should be all you need to know to take this one on. We'll talk again at the beginning of the 6th boss, which is definitely the most challenging of this dungeon and requires a special gear set change. This brings us to Aline Pellinger, the 6th and final boss of this dungeon, and easily the most challenging. I use a special gear set for this, giving me a lot of hit points. The Warrior Poets set, the Vampire's Cloak set, the Ring of Pale Order still, and then I also use just a Medusa staff along with a Vampire's Cloak staff for the weapons. Now this gear setup gives us 35,000 hit points plus, which allows us to easily contend with all of the devastating abilities that this boss can do. The first is a heavy melee attack that you normally want to block. If it lands, it can easily one-shot you. Additionally, from time to time Aline will teleport to random targets and deal lots of damage and snare you. This also can one-shot you, hence why we need to have this much hit points. Additionally, roughly every 25% of her health she will summon fiendish hallucinations that will swarm you, and you'll need to quickly take care of them. Frankly, they don't have too much hit points, and it's the rather easier part of the fight, so I use those periods of time to catch up, try and restore as much of my resources as I can, so that once she reappears, which will happen once they are all dead, you can hit the ground running with all of your resources restored. You'll also notice that I commonly will just pull her around this particular rock here. I find that makes the fight overall easier, as it kind of drags her behind you on certain parts, making it easier for your Ring of the Pale Order to take effect and for you to cure yourself. I kind of stick to a one-bar philosophy for much of this fight, which is just those 5 abilities that you see slotted there. Occasionally, you'll see me dip down to my other bar to do some AoE abilities, but really, those are just for those periods of time at 75%, 50, and 25 when she summons all of those adds. You also want to make sure to try and use your ultimate to the best effect during this fight, because it will be a substantial part of your damage. Therefore, when you drop that, go ahead and try and keep her in this circle while you pull her around it, getting your damage in and keeping yourself alive, being sure to block her attacks. Once the ultimate ability is over, go ahead and go back to your kiting technique, because you will no longer be doing enough damage for that Ring of Pale Order to be curing you, so you're going to have to go back to curing yourself while you pull her around the rock. This of course does make for a fairly slow kill, but the most reliable kill that I can come up with. And since you're just trying to solo this, and obviously more than likely just get your Helm or Veteran Undaunted quest kill, it will accomplish that goal for you. I hope you found this helpful. Go ahead and enjoy the rest of this run, and thank you so much for watching, everyone. That's going to be it for how to take on Wayrest Sewers on the Veteran difficulty. I hope you found that helpful. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Stay safe and stay healthy out there.